The contract that bought my silence. I'm standing in a bathroom that costs more than my entire neighborhood, mascara running down my face, holding a pregnancy test that's about to destroy a $847 million merger. Through the door, I can hear Alexander Whitmore, the man whose child I'm carrying, announcing his engagement to Senator Bradford's daughter on live television. Let me tell you how a janitor's daughter from Queens ended up here. 6 months earlier, I was working 3 jobs to keep my little brother in his specialized school. Danny has autism, and the only program that worked for him cost $40,200 a month. My mother cleaned houses. I worked overnight at a hospital doing medical transcription, weekends at a coffee shop, and weeknights as a cleaning lady for corporate offices in Manhattan. That's where I met him. It was 11:47 p.m. on a Tuesday when I walked into the executive suite of Whitmore Capital on the 43rd floor. I had my headphones in, listening to an audiobook about Rome, my escape from the smell of industrial cleaner and the ache in my knees. I didn't realize anyone was there until I saw him standing by the floor-to-ceiling windows, still in his suit, staring out at the city like he was trying to find something he'd lost. "I'm sorry," I said, pulling out my earbuds. "I thought everyone was gone. I can come back?" "No." His voice was rough. "Stay. I should be leaving anyway." But he didn't leave. He watched me work for maybe 20 minutes in complete silence. Not in a creepy way. More like he'd forgotten how to be around another human being. "What were you listening to?" he finally asked. "A book about Marcus Aurelius." He smiled for the first time. It changed his entire face. "Meditations?" "Yeah." "You know it?" "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He quoted it perfectly. My father used to read that to me, before he decided philosophy was for people who couldn't make money. We talked until 2 a.m. that night, about stoicism and survival, about his father who built an empire and 3 emotionally destroyed sons, about my father who died installing air conditioning in a heat wave because the building owner wouldn't let them take breaks, about duty and dignity, and the different ways poverty and wealth both trap you. I learned his name when I got home and Googled Whitmore Capital. Alexander Whitmore, 34, heir to a private equity fortune worth $3.2 billion, recently returned from London to take over operations after his older brother's public breakdown. Known for being brilliant, cold, and completely uninterested in the social obligations his father demanded. I thought that would be the end of it. But the next Tuesday, at 11:47 p.m., he was there again, and the Tuesday after that. We never exchanged numbers, never met outside that office. But for 3 months, Tuesday nights became the only time either of us told the truth about our lives. He told me about the pressure to merge with the Bradford family's media empire, about his father's ultimatum: marry Senator Bradford's daughter Vanessa, secure the political connections they needed, produce an heir, or be cut off entirely and watch his younger brother, a gambling addict, be put in charge instead. I told him about Danny's bad weeks, when the world was too loud and too bright, and he'd hurt himself trying to make it stop. About the medical bills for my mother's cancer treatment that we were still paying off 5 years after her death. About feeling invisible, not in a metaphorical way, but literally. I could walk through the most expensive lobbies in Manhattan, and not one person would look at me. "I see you," he said one night. "You're the only person who doesn't want anything from me." That's when everything changed. It wasn't romantic, not at first. It was recognition. 2 people drowning in different oceans who found someone who understood what the water felt like in your lungs. The night we crossed the line, he'd just come from a dinner with Vanessa and both their families. They'd discussed wedding venues and prenuptial agreements and which charities she'd be photographed supporting. He looked at me with such desperate hunger for something real that when he kissed me, I didn't stop him. I should have. God, I should have. We started meeting at a property he owned in Brooklyn, a brownstone he'd bought as an investment and never rented out. It became our impossible space. Every Tuesday and Thursday night for 3 months. He'd bring food from restaurants I couldn't pronounce. We'd talk and make love and pretend we existed outside of reality. "Come with me," he said once. "I'll call off the engagement. We'll figure it out." But I knew better. I'd seen how his world worked. I'd cleaned enough boardrooms to know that people like me don't end up with people like him. We end up as cautionary tales and non-disclosure agreements. "Your brother needs you stable and employed," I told him. "Your family needs this merger, and I need to not be the woman who destroyed all of that." He looked at me like I'd stabbed him. But he didn't argue, because we both knew I was right. The pregnancy test came back positive on a Thursday. I was in the bathroom of the Brooklyn brownstone, Alexander in the kitchen making pasta. This was one of his things. He actually knew how to cook, said his Italian grandmother taught him before she died. I walked out, holding the test. He looked at my face and dropped the wooden spoon. "How far along?" 6 weeks, maybe 7. He sat down heavily. Did calculations in his head with that scary brain of his. "Before I formally proposed to Vanessa. Before the official engagement announcement." "Barely." We sat in silence for maybe 20 minutes. "I want to keep it," I finally said. "I'm not asking you for anything. You'll never have to—" "Stop." His voice was sharp. "You think I'd let you raise my child alone? Working 3 jobs? Never knowing if you could afford what they need? What exactly are you suggesting? You're getting married in 4 months, Alexander. To a woman whose father controls half the media in this country. What's your plan? A secret second family? Child support payments that mysteriously appear?" "I'll call it off." "I'll tell my father—" "You'll tell your father what? That you got the cleaning lady pregnant? You know what happens then? Your brother takes over, runs the company into the ground, and thousands of people lose their jobs. You lose your health care, and Danny loses his school because I lose my job when this becomes public. And Vanessa's father, the senator, uses every media outlet he owns to destroy both of us, because you embarrassed his daughter." I watched him realize I'd thought this through. All of it. "There's another option," he said quietly. "It's not good, but it's the only way everyone survives this." That's when he told me about the contract. $15 million in a trust I couldn't touch until the child turned 18. Full medical coverage for both of us, including Danny's school paid in full through graduation, a house in my name in a good school district in Connecticut, monthly allowance of $8,000 for expenses. The child would know him, not as a father, but as a family friend who took interest in their well-being. Supervised visits on neutral ground, no public acknowledgement, no paternity claims, complete silence about the nature of our relationship. In exchange, I'd disappear from his life completely except for scheduled visits with the child. Non-disclosure agreement with liquidated damages of $50 million if I ever speak about him publicly. No contact except through lawyers. No claims on his estate beyond what's in the trust. And I had to decide before he announced his engagement to Vanessa in 6 days. "This is insane," I whispered. "You're asking me to sign away." "I'm asking you to let me protect you the only way I can." His voice broke. "You think I want this? You think I want to marry someone I don't love while the woman carrying my child lives in Connecticut pretending I'm just a generous benefactor? But this is the only way you and the baby survive my world. What about what I want? What if I want my child to have a real father? What if I want—" "What you want and what's possible in my world are 2 different things. And I'm not good enough to walk away from everything for you. I'm not that brave." At least he was honest. I signed the contract 3 days later. $15 million that I couldn't access, a house I'd own but felt like a beautiful cage, financial security that came with absolute silence about the truth. The night of his engagement announcement, I was in my new house in Connecticut. They'd expedited everything, watching him on television in that $12,000 suit, smiling next to Vanessa, who wore a 7-carat diamond and a perfectly practiced expression of demure joy.
"How does it feel to finally be settling down?" the interviewer asked. "Like I'm doing what's expected of me," he said, which was as close to the truth as he could get. That's when I felt it. A flutter in my belly. The baby moving for the first time. I drove back to the city that night, broke into Whitmore Capital using my old cleaning key card that nobody had deactivated, and that's where you found me at the beginning of this story. In the bathroom where I used to refill my cleaning supplies, having a complete breakdown while he announced his fake engagement downstairs. But here's the twist. I wasn't crying because I lost him. I was crying because I realized I was exactly like him. Both of us choosing security over truth. Both of us too scared to fight for what we really wanted. Both of us letting other people's needs define our entire lives. And I was done. I walked out of that bathroom, took the elevator down to the lobby where the engagement party was happening in the grand ballroom. I still had my cleaning uniform in my bag from my old job. I put it on. Then, I walked into that ballroom filled with New York's elite like I was supposed to be cleaning up after them. Nobody stopped me. Nobody even looked at me. I walked right up to the stage where Alexander and Vanessa were taking photos, still in my cleaning uniform with my pregnant belly just starting to show, and I stood there until the photographers noticed. Until the questions started. Until Alexander looked at me with absolute terror. "Mr. Whitmore," I said clearly, loud enough for the microphones to catch. "We need to discuss the terms of our contract, specifically the part about my silence." The room went completely dead. Vanessa looked at me, then at Alexander, then at my stomach. Her face went white. Alexander's father, Harrison Whitmore, moved toward me like a predator. "Young lady, I don't know what you think you're doing." Renegotiating. I pulled out my phone, opened a voice recording app. "I'm prepared to hold a press conference in exactly 1 hour. I'll discuss my relationship with your son, the pregnancy, and the contract he offered me to stay silent." "Unless we reach a different arrangement."
"You signed an NDA?" Harrison hissed. "You'll owe us $50 million.
"I'll owe you $50 million I don't have. Good luck collecting. Meanwhile, your merger collapses and your son's reputation is destroyed. Or
what?"
Alexander's voice. He was staring at me like I was a stranger.
"Or you tear up that contract and give me what I actually want."
"Which is?" Senator Bradford had joined us now, his face purple with rage.
"Marriage." I looked directly at Alexander. "Real marriage. Public acknowledgement of this child, and you walk away from this merger and this sham engagement." The room exploded into whispers. "You're insane," Vanessa said, but she didn't sound angry. She sounded almost relieved. "Probably," I agreed. "But I'm also pregnant and tired and done pretending. So, what's it going to be, Alexander? The life your father planned, or the truth?" He stared at me for a long time. Long enough that I started to think I'd miscalculated everything. That he'd choose the merger and the money and the empire. Then, he started laughing. Actually laughing. You know what? He pulled off his jacket, loosened his tie, looked at his father.
"I'm done. I'm so fucking done. You want someone to manage your empire and marry for business? Call Marcus. See how that works out for you." He walked off the stage, took my hand. "Let's go." "Alexander!" His father's voice was a whip crack. "If you walk out that door, you're finished. No trust fund, no position. Nothing. Good, Alexander said. She was right about me. I wasn't brave enough, but I am now. We walked out together while cameras flashed and the entire room erupted into chaos.
Here's what nobody tells you about standing up to billionaires. It doesn't magically solve everything. Alexander's father cut him off completely. The merger collapsed, and the Bradford family spent 6 months trying to destroy us in the press. We lived in my Connecticut house, the one asset they couldn't touch because it was already in my name, and Alexander, who'd never held a job outside his family company, had to figure out what he was actually good at. Turns out, teaching. He started teaching business ethics at a community college for $48,000 a year, used his connections to help students from rough backgrounds get internships. Came home exhausted and actually happy. I went back to school, used some of the monthly allowance from the trust to get a degree in social work, specialized in helping families navigate the healthcare system. The baby, our daughter Emma, was born 7 months after the engagement party explosion. She has his eyes and my stubborn streak, and absolutely no idea that her grandfather is a billionaire who refuses to acknowledge her existence. We got married at City Hall. My brother Danny was the witness. Alexander wore a suit from Men's Warehouse. I wore a dress from Target. It was perfect. 3 years later, Alexander's younger brother Marcus drove the company into the ground just like I predicted. Harrison Whitmore had a stroke trying to salvage things. Alexander got a phone call from the board begging him to come back. "What do you want to do?" I asked him. "I want to ask what you think." "I think," I said carefully, "that you could do a lot of good if you ran that company, but only if we do it on our terms. Emma comes to the office sometimes. I'm not hiding, and you fire anyone who treats support staff like they're invisible." He went back, restructured everything, cut his own salary by 60% and redistributed it to worker wages. Started a program covering educational expenses for all employees' children, including specialized programs like the one that saved Danny. His father recovered from the stroke but never forgave him. They haven't spoken in 5 years. But here's the thing about burning down your life for the truth. Sometimes you find out who you actually are in the ashes. Last month, Alexander came home and found me crying over college brochures with Danny. My brother had gotten into a program for adults with autism who want to work in technology, but it cost $30,000 a year. "We'll figure it out," Alexander said, already calculating. "You gave up billions for us," I said, "and we're still scrambling for $30,000. He knelt down, took my face in his hands. "I gave up money I never earned. What I got was Emma laughing when I do voices during bedtime stories. You, coming home excited about a family you helped stay together. Danny teaching me about train schedules with that incredible memory of his. Tuesday nights where we still tell each other the truth. This life. I got this life. You miss it, though," I said. "The power, the ease of everything." "Sometimes," he admitted. "But I don't miss who I was when I had it. That guy was drowning. You taught me how to breathe." Emma walked in right then, holding her stuffed elephant. "Daddy, Mama, why is everyone crying?" "Because we're happy, baby," I said. And the crazy thing? It was true. I'm not going to lie and say everything is perfect. We have a mortgage. We argue about money. Alexander still has nightmares about disappointing people. I still have panic attacks about medical bills. His mother sends birthday cards to Emma that her husband doesn't know about. The press still occasionally writes articles about the cleaning lady who trapped a billionaire. But Emma knows both her parents. She's growing up in a house where love isn't contingent on performance. And every Tuesday night, still, after all this time, Alexander and I stay up late and tell each other the truth about our lives. The contract I signed that desperate night is framed in our bedroom now. Not as a reminder of what I accepted, but what I refused to accept. The line I drew. The moment I decided my child deserved more than financial security and polite lies. Sometimes I wonder what would have happened if I'd stayed quiet, taken the $15 million trust and the beautiful cage, and raised Emma to be grateful for the scraps of his presence. Then, I remember the look on Alexander's face when Emma took her first steps. The way he cried at our City Hall wedding, how he holds my hand during thunderstorms because I told him once that they scare me, how we're building something real from nothing instead of inheriting something hollow from everything. The truth is expensive, but silence costs more. And I'm the woman who walked into a billionaire's engagement party in a cleaning uniform with nothing to lose and everything to fight for. That woman doesn't stay quiet anymore. That woman teaches her daughter that your worth isn't measured in trust funds or last names or the silence you're willing to sell. It's measured in the moments you choose truth over comfort, love over security, the terrifying beauty of building a life instead of inheriting one. Alexander tells me he would have stayed miserable forever if I hadn't crashed that party, that I saved his life. But here's the secret. He saved mine too. Because before him, I thought survival was enough. I thought being invisible was the price of peace. I thought people like me didn't get to want more. Now I know better. Emma will know better too, and maybe that's worth more than $3.2 billion ever could have been. Epilogue. Last week, Danny graduated from his technology program, top of his class. He got a job at a software company that specializes in accessibility features. He called me crying, happy tears. I did it, he said. Mom would be proud. She would be, I whispered. At the celebration dinner, Alexander's mother showed up, just walked in without warning, looked at Alexander, then at me, then at Emma. May I join you? She asked quietly. Harrison Whitmore is still refusing contact, still treats his son like a traitor, still tells people that Alexander wasted his potential on a gold digger, but Catherine Whitmore sat next to her granddaughter and taught her how to fold a napkin into a swan, told Danny she admired his determination, looked at me and said, "You have a beautiful family. Thank you for loving my son enough to fight for him." Then she looked at Alexander. "Your father may never forgive you, but I'm proud of who you became when you stopped trying to please him. Change doesn't happen all at once. Sometimes it happens one Tuesday at a time, one person choosing truth over expectation, one grandmother choosing her son over her husband's pride, one cleaning lady deciding she's worth more than silence. We're not in the society pages anymore. We're not at the galas or the merger announcements or the powerful tables where the world gets decided. But on Tuesday nights, when Emma is asleep and Alexander and I sit on our back porch in Connecticut, I remember that night in his office when I was still invisible and he was still drowning. And I realize we're both exactly where we're supposed to be. Finally visible. Finally breathing. Finally free. The contract bought my silence. But I broke it and found my voice instead. And that voice taught both of us something his billions never could. That the richest life is the one you choose, not the one you inherit, even if it costs you everything to build it.